everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Brittany. This is the Brittany Reacts Show. I hope you guys had a great Christmas. I had a great Christmas here as well. Today we are talking about my 10 least favorite movies of 2023. I did post an entire live stream last week where I talked about my least favorites. So, my 10 favorites. So if you want to see my 10 favorite movies, make sure you go back and check out that live stream. But today, we will be talking about my 10 least favorite. Literally the movies that I just can't stand, that I think are terrible, that some of you guys, you already know about a lot of these movies, but some of them might surprise you, I don't know. I did give a lot of movies this year a mid-score, so you guys don't know where maybe some of these movies fall. I will say the bottom half of this list are more like just disappointments. Some of them aren't just like, oh, outright they were terrible, more just like, oh, they could have been a lot better. But then the top part of my list is like, yeah, no, those movies are pretty bad. But how are you guys doing? Hi, Glitzy. Hi, Hit Movies. Hi, the Blue Gecko Nerd. Hi, Hit Movies. Hi, Chantel. Hi, Jocelyn. Hi, Cheetah Viper. Hi, Jojo Rod. Hi, Del Pedro. Hi, Prototype. Hi, Wanda. Hi, Ruru. Hi, Chantel. Hi to everyone who is here, and thank you to each and every one of you who comes to my show every day. I deeply, deeply appreciate it. All right. So, did anyone see any movies over the weekend? Since I know we just had Christmas weekend, anyone see any movies? What did you guys do for Christmas? I was a tourist here in New York since I'm still pretty new to the city. I went to Times Square. Yes, I went to Times Square for Christmas. That's the most touristy thing you could do, but that's what I did. Had a nice meal with my family. But what did you guys do? Yeah, Mikey, this was a mild movie year, for sure. Oh, thank you, Chantal. I'm glad that you like these streams. Oh, the only superhero movie you watched was Blue Beetle this year. Wow. I actually liked Blue Beetle. Scorpio Shadow says, not really Prototype. Oh, never mind. Okay, so some of you saw Migration. Oh, Nate, you finally saw Godzilla -1. Oh, I'm so glad you saw Godzilla. The more people who see Godzilla, the happier I am. Oh, Cheetah Viper watched Rebel Moon. I still haven't seen that yet. I need to. Oh no, Blue Gecko Nerd, you didn't get any gifts. Oh, I'm so sorry. Jocelyn Wolf says, my family saw Aquaman 2. Entertaining but awful. Went on Mom's birthday. You may or may not see Aquaman 2 on this list, just saying. Yeah, I'm going to see The Color Purple this weekend. I haven't seen that one yet, but I'm seeing it soon. Alright, so it seems like a lot of you guys did at least go to the movies. That's great. I'm also going to see Migration eventually, but, you know, I gotta go in order. Oh, you watched Wet Dune on Hulu? That's nice, Ruru. Okay. Alright, so let's get to my breakdown here. Oh no! Hold on. Guys, I totally forgot something. We're gonna have to fix this real quick before we can begin, or it's not gonna look great. But anyway, I would say overall, this has been a pretty terrible year for movies. Like, really just like the worst. Like, there have been a lot of like official articles and websites that have talked about how bad of a year this was for Hollywood. And it's not just that, you know, they had the strikes and all that. It's that they did have a lot of big franchise flops and not just the superhero movies. So I do wonder what the heck they're gonna do with the future from now on. Like, what kind of movies are they gonna greenlight in the future based on the movies that actually did well this year? Because we had a very strange year where a whole bunch of films did well that not a lot of people expected, and a lot of movies that people did expect to do well didn't do well at all. So the people who are in charge of greenlighting stuff, I'm very curious to see what lessons they learned from this year, if they learned any lessons at all. Give me a second though. But what do you guys think should be the #1 lesson that Hollywood should take away from this year? Okay, Primal just liked Oppenheimer. Give me 1 second. Sorry, guys. Boop. I forgot to change my heading. It is not the Aquaman 2 review. So, We're changing that out. I had to go and change it. Alright, so we have changed it to the top 10 worst movies. Alright, so at number 10, we are at Peter Pan and Wendy. Again, like I said, the bottom half of my list is more like movies that I'm disappointed in. I did understand the direction this movie went in. I understand that the director, Peter Lowry, I think his name was, David Lowry, he really wanted to make a more emotional, like, bleaker version of this, like, very classic story that we all know. And I just kind of felt like that is not what people want from a Peter Pan and Wendy story. Ignore the rigor. I think most people want, like, you know, literally what Peter Pan is about a bunch of kids going to a nice fantasy land where they don't have to age, and like it's basically a beautiful, colorful utopia. And instead with this movie, we just kind of got this bleak atmosphere where they're just kind of like in Canada or something, which I'm pretty sure this is where they filmed, or somewhere in the UK. Like, it doesn't really, like, this movie didn't scream magic when a Peter Pan movie should scream magic. The only time in this movie where I felt the magic, so to speak, was towards the end when Wendy finally flies. That was a nice, beautiful scene. Again, I don't think it's a terrible movie, but I do think overall it was just too dark and depressing looking for me to really get into it. Like, a lot of the scenes were literally, like, super, super dark, like, actually hard to see. And I thought for a Peter Pan story, that was just very, very strange. Oh, Scorpio Shadow, you're not surprised by this? Natanya, you're not surprised either? Yeah. Well, I have it at number 10 because, like I said, there were some nice moments in it. I did like some of the elements in the final act with Wendy, and like when she begins to fly, she sees her whole life flash before her eyes. I thought that was a nice, touching element to it. But overall, I can't get over how drab they made Neverland seem, and they just, like, to me, I felt like this movie sucked all the wonder, magic, and whimsy from the Peter Pan story, and that is, like, I just felt like they just took the opposite direction with this film that they should have, and that's why I was very disappointed with it. But anyone see this movie? Did anyone disagree? Anyone surprised that I have this on my list? I know you guys just heard Prancer, sorry. Miss Olsen, Peter Pan and Wendy was trash. My friend broke her TV. That's not true. I don't believe that. If that's true, your friend needs anger management. Potato Girl says the 2003 Peter Pan is perfect. I actually haven't seen the 2003 Peter Pan. I've seen clips of it, like I've seen parts of it. But for the parts that I've seen, it does have more of the magical whimsy that I was hoping would be in this movie. Like, I was hoping for more of a Hook type of movie, and this is not that. Oh, you love Prancer, Cheetah Viper? Well, that's great. Arvin says, they killed the main character, no surprise. Yeah, it was a very grim take on the story, I will say. Yeah, the dark color scheme just really took me out. It was very emo. Like, it was the emo version of Peter Pan, and I was just like, what is this? I kind of get where you're going for. It was trying to make very emotional, deep thoughts about time and aging, and I got that, and I liked those metaphors and, you know, such and so forth. I just thought they did it in like the bleakest, blandest way possible. that was my biggest issue with this film. But moving on to number 9, and that's Transformers: Rise of the Beast. Now, I'm only familiar with Transformers from the movies, so like from the Bay movies onward, I thought those are the only Transformers movies I've seen. I haven't seen any of the TV shows, so not just like nostalgic for this brand. I never played with these toys as a kid or anything. But I do know the movies fairly well, just because I liked, especially the earlier Michael Bay movies. I actually liked those as a kid. But I will say, I think this franchise has just completely run its course. I think, again, this is another movie where I didn't think it was terrible. I really don't. At the very least, I liked Anthony Ramos's character. I like Anthony Ramos in The Heights as well, so I think maybe I just like Anthony Ramos. But other than that, I kind of feel like this movie was like stereotypical, run-of-the-mill, like Hollywood blockbuster number 3010. It had all of the same beats that you expect to be in really just any generic blockbuster. even down to the third act fight. I swear there were certain shots and certain sequences in the final battle that were ripped straight from Infinity War. Like, shot for shot. There was even a moment where they had, like, I think one of the Transformers come, like, jumping out of the sky or whatever. But it seems so much like an exact ripoff of that scene in Infinity War where you had Hulk come down and fall out of the sky during the battle. It was just so much, like, I felt like, I don't know, it was just ripping off too many other movies. Like, this was just generic Hollywood blockbuster, the movie, you know? The only thing that saved it for me was that I actually did like the human characters. Again, kind of like Godzilla -1, I cared about the characters here, or at least Anthony Ramos and the girl that he was with. And I liked his little brother, too. But yeah, I actually did not care about the animatronics at all. Or the animatronics, the Transformers. Did not care for the Transformers much. I thought they were just kind of there for action fodder for the most part. Anyone see this movie? Okay, Aaliyah, this movie bored you? Yeah. Yeah, I think the original Transformers movie with Shia LaBeouf is actually still the best version. Arvin says, last Transformers I watched was Bumblebee, and I didn't watch this one either. I actually think Bumblebee was not bad. I liked Bumblebee. I thought Bumblebee was better than this one. Potato Girl says, they got me to feel a little bit with the lady Transformer dying. Well, I'm glad you felt something. Cat felt the same. Oh, Motion Going, sorry that I'm hating on it. It's not that I'm hating on it. Again, I would say this movie is not terrible. There are some genuinely terrible movies that you will find on this list. I just found it mostly kind of blah, and I was bored throughout most of it. Just because I felt like, especially with, like, the whole last act is just one giant action sequence in a gray field. Again, kind of like Infinity War. Or Endgame, really. And I just kind of, I don't know. The fact that I was tuning out during a giant action sequence is not good, but that's how disengaged I was. Oh, Omerix, you forgot this came out? Yeah, it's a very forgettable movie. Are they making a sequel of Ethereal Dragon? They might make a sequel to this, but I think they didn't really make a ton of money on this one, so we'll see. I don't know. We'll see if the sequel ever comes out. Okay, hit movies, you also didn't like it? Okay, so I'm not alone. I know, see, some of you said that you liked it, but it seems like I'm not alone here. A couple of you also agree this was not great. Anyway, moving on to the next movie. At number 8, we have The Exorcist Believer. Man, this movie, when I first saw this movie, like, my takeaway impression was that, it's weird, it's okay, like, but then something was sitting with me about this movie that really I didn't like, and I couldn't put my finger on what bothered me about this movie so much. And then I realized why I think I had an issue with it, because I kept focusing on it so much. So if you guys haven't seen this movie, part of what happens in it, it's really a mild spoiler, but the devil, the demon, possesses both these little girls, and it sets it up in the end that only one of them can live, essentially. And because Hollywood is the way that it is right now, it was always going to be, of course, the black girl lives. And I don't like that they kind of set it up that way. I don't like that Hollywood is playing along these racial divides and trying to be polarizing, and I didn't like that it came down to that. And it was almost like the movie treated it as though that was the righteous decision. And that actually rubbed me the wrong way, because I'm like, if it went the other way, like, that would not be okay. I don't know. That was just one of the reasons why I didn't care for this movie. But also, just thought again, I actually watched the original Exorcist for the first time this Halloween, and comparing the two, like the original Exorcist to this Exorcist, and I'm like, I realized they took all of the bite out of it. They took a lot of the horror out of it. Like, it actually wasn't that scary. It wasn't even that creepy either. Maybe I have a high tolerance for horror, so maybe it just didn't scare me. But I thought it was another movie where it was more of a drama then it was super scary. And though the original Exorcist is also a drama too, at least that one has like a creepy, unnerving feeling. That one, this movie didn't really even give me that either. It was still more just kind of like I was feeling like, it's okay. It's fine. Like, that's honestly kind of mostly how I felt at the end of this movie. And for an Exorcist film, I feel like that is not how I should be feeling leaving the theater. So that's why I had to put it on my list for one of my least favorite movies of the year at number 8. And there was also a lot of really weird religious, like, metaphors. They try to add a lot of commentary to this movie. And I don't think they handled any of the commentary well. Like, any of the commentary well. So that's why I think this movie kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Okay, Natanya, you agree with me. Alright. Hit movies, oh, you liked it. Alright. Okay, Xavier, you thought the OG one was boring. You know what? In the first act, I was starting to think that too, because I was like, what is the hype around this movie? But I thought it picks up towards the end. What is Xavier saying? Yeah, Edgemond, you heard the movie was kind of problematic. I feel like this movie will piss off anyone. Left, right, like I said, they tried to throw in a lot of messaging and, like, they try to have a lesson learned or something in this movie, but I feel like they handle all of it so badly, it kind of blew up in their faces. Like, there's also, like, messaging about abortion in this movie and, like, a bunch of other stuff about religion. It's like, I believe this movie is one of those movies where, like, you know, it being woke kind of ruined it, because they definitely were going for message first over story, because that's honestly all I came away with this. But they did the messaging so badly, I think they probably offended everyone. Aaliyah says there's supposed to be 2 more movies coming, and I'm worried. I don't know how they can make 2 more movies in the series. I know they paid a lot of money for the rights to The Exorcist, but this movie actually flopped. So if they do another Exorcist movie, they better do it with a new cast or something. They better do it with, like, I don't know, a new director, new story. They gotta start over. Oh, you never heard of this, Miss Olsen? Oh, no. Motion Going says, I hated that they brought back the original character for a few minutes for her to get blinded after seeing her for 5 minutes. What a joke of a film. Yeah, it was almost like they disrespected the original. Like, now having gone back to seeing the original after the fact, I can understand why people who were fans of the original were even more upset with the movie than I was. Because they do kind of disrespect it a lot. Oh my god, Emmerich says the Eras Tour movie outsold this flop. Did the Eras Tour really make more money than this? That's hilarious. That's actually really funny. Yeah, I don't think they're going to make another one of this. They really shouldn't. They really shouldn't. But anyway, the next movie that I really did not like, and you guys know, is Haunted Mansion. Did not care for Haunted Mansion. I am a huge Haunted Mansion fan, as in the ride. I have ridden the ride both in Disneyland and in Disney World countless times. Love me some Haunted Mansion. I think this movie does that ride a disservice by not showing off why that ride is so popular at all locations that it's in. It's not just spooky, but it's also fun. It's campy. There's a lot to look at. It's very immersive. That should have been what this movie was, but instead, it was like Disney was too afraid to go in any one direction. Like, it wasn't super funny, even though it could have been. Like, the Eddie Murphy version was pretty funny. Like, this movie was just kind of, like, they had jokes, but like I said in my review, I felt like the timing of a lot of those jokes didn't really land, so it wasn't very funny to me. And then it wasn't very scary either, because they toned down a lot of the spooks and the scares, because I guess they wanted this movie to be okay for small kids. So it wasn't very scary. It wasn't very funny. They tried to add, like, a little backstory to Lakeith Stanfield's character that was very sad. So they kind of had a bit of a drama element to it. And I was just like, why are we kind of doing this, like, milquetoast movie in, like, a rundown house that doesn't even look that spooky? It just kind of looks old. And somehow this movie cost $150 million? Man, this was such a missed opportunity. I thought the 2004 Eddie Murphy version was a lot better than this, and that's not a perfect movie either, but at least it had more fun. This movie is not fun, and the Haunted Mansion ride is fun, and that's what I feel like this movie was missing. A Scorpio Shadow hasn't seen it. Alan says, at least Rosario Dawson did not do too many of the Ashoka arm crossings. I know, I really love Rosario Dawson. Truly, I really like her. She's great in Daredevil. But yeah, her performance as Ahsoka, I'm just gonna blame Dave Filoni because he's the director. He should have told her to do something else other than fold her arms. Scorpio Shadow says, honestly, the movie should have had more scary than comedy. I agree. I think it would have been fun if it was a little bit scarier. And kids can handle scarier. Look at, like, older kids' horror movies like Coraline or even, like, Frankenweenie or, what's it called? Monster House. Like, kids can handle a little bit of spookiness. I remember when I was a kid watching those films. They were very scary, but, like, can handle it. I don't know. I feel like they were too afraid to do anything really with this movie, so we got a lot of nothing. Harry Wilson says the takeaway from greenlighting should be to start listening to actual paying customers instead of Twitter fingers, especially since I think the loudest people on Twitter represent the minority for sure. So yeah, they should stop listening to Twitter people, like 100%. Oh, that's true, the Blood Gecko Nerd. The Incredibles has a lot of dark elements to it, or at least a few dark scenes. Darker than anything that was in Wish, or a lot of these recent Disney movies. Darker than anything that's even in this movie. And it's the Haunted Mansion. That's what I mean. This movie just, like, never really goes there. And that's kind of my problem with it. My next least favorite movie is actually a DreamWorks movie. The Ruby Gillman Teenage Kraken. Now, I think DreamWorks is a pretty hit and miss studio. They have some movies that I think are really good. Obviously, I quite literally, think Shrek is a masterpiece. I'm not joking. Shrek 2 and, like, the first Shrek, they totally are deserved to be in the film registry for the National Film Hall or whatever. Those movies are important and they're very good. Also, they recently had their Puss in Boots film that was really good. I like their How to Train Your Dragon movies. Like, they've got some good films. This is not one of them. This is not one of them. I had to see this movie because you guys kept telling me I should see it, and I was like, alright, let me go see it. And first of all, as you guys know, or at least if you saw my review, you know that I am not a fan of the animation style. The animation style is so noodly, so strange. They're all krakens, but they all look like giant, weird, noodly amoebas. I thought the whole time their hair looked like Swedish fish, and I didn't like how they looked or how this world looked. I also didn't like their personalities. I thought the main character was really annoying. Her personality was kind of like what Disney does with their princesses. She was that adorable type, but like to the extreme. Like super, super annoying. Her friends also talked like millennials in their 30s and not like teenagers, and it was very distracting and weird, and I was like, oh god. Are they really going to be talking like this the whole movie? But yes, they were. I mean, again, if you guys know who Liza Koshy is, Liza Koshy voices one of her friends, so that's how they speak the whole movie. And they all look like this. Like, what are these character designs? Such a strange film. If you don't know what it's about, it's basically DreamWorks' version of Turning Red with krakens instead of pandas. Same story, same concept, but just worse visuals and worse jokes. Did not care for this movie at all, really. We're starting to get into the movies that I genuinely didn't like. Not just disappointed, but like, I really thought they were bad. I thought this movie was not good. Oh, Metronoma, thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate it. I think Chris Columbus would have made a great choice for a Haunted Mansion director. Oh, that's a good idea. His style fits for the universe. It totally does. You know, I thought Christopher Columbus handled some of the darker elements of Harry Potter really well. Like, Harry Potter could get pretty creepy at times, especially for kids. Like, if you know the first Harry Potter movie really well, the part where they get wrapped in the snakes and they have to, like, stay still to get released, that's really creepy. Like, and he handled that really well. Again, kids can handle scary movies. So, yeah, I think Chris Columbus probably would have been a great director for that movie. That's a good point. Thank you for the super chat. Anyone see this movie here? Ruby Gillman was not a fan. Not a fan. Even you could just look, her face is also like wet and glossy too. I don't know. I did not like the look of it. She was just weird to look at. Scorpio Shadow says, honestly, I wish we could have had a mermaid and Kraken enemies to lovers plot. Would have been better. I just wish that they were actually more enemies throughout the movie. Like, they were mostly kind of friends for most of the film. The whole, like, twist didn't come until the very end, and I'm just like, this should have happened in the first act. I don't know. Amorix says they tried to come for the live-action Little Mermaid, and the ads in the Little Mermaid Hive got the last laugh because it flopped. That's true. Although I think they stopped. I think they were planning to market this movie against Disney more with the whole mermaid aspect. But I think they stopped once they saw how much hate Halle Bailey was getting. I don't think that was entirely, like, Little Mermaid fans stopping them. I think they didn't want to invite purposeful comparisons because people were making, like, racial comparisons. But that's just my theory. Will French says, kids can handle scary movies. I can't. This movie was scary to me. That shows my fear tolerance. Wait, are you talking about Haunted Mansion or Ruby Gillman? I hope you're talking about Haunted Mansion. Well, if you think Haunted Mansion was scary, that's totally great. You could totally like that movie, not taking away from you. I just was not. But anyway, moving on to the next movie. At number 5, we have Fast X. So, Fast X. This movie, I mean, I know these movies are typically, like, they're typically not, you're not supposed to take them that seriously. They're supposed to be very fun and loosey-goosey. And I've liked several Fast and Furious movies. In fact, I think Fast 7 might be my favorite of the Fast and Furious movies. I really liked that movie a lot, actually. But this movie takes some of those campy, wacky elements and they just really go there. They don't go all the way to space this time, but they might as well have because they still jump the shark just as much. The only thing that really saved this movie was, of course, Dante. If you saw my Aquaman review, I said that Jason Momoa was more like Dante in Aquaman than he was Aquaman. And it's true! In Aquaman, I don't feel like Dante works, but in Fast and Furious, Dante is the best character. He was the best villain this series has had in a minute, I think. He brought a lot of fun energy to that movie. I thought he was really what made it mostly watchable. I mean, you guys, the very end, when the car is like flying down the bridge and the fire is going behind him, if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. Laws of physics, not in the chat, nowhere to be found. But you know what? It's still fun, I guess. You could turn your brain off for it, fine. But I feel like I've been giving a lot of movies passes for being just kind of watchable and fine before. So that's why I'm trying to be more strict. And I gotta be real, other than, you know, Jason Momoa's performances and a few fun action sequences, I can't say this movie is, like, actually good, you know? So that's why I have it on this list at number 5. Martin Schmidt, thank you so much for the super chat. Welcome back, Brittany. I think the problem is they want to be super politically correct. A movie became bland, plus we're missing evil villains. True. Thinking back to the Haunted Mansion movie, and was it the Hatbox Ghost? The fact that I'm, like, having to remember who the villain is in that movie is a problem. None of the characters really stand out that much, and that's a problem with a lot of Disney movies. But thank you for the super chat. Potato Girl says, I think I only saw the first 3. Well, you have a lot to catch up on. Seems like not a lot of you guys have actually seen this one. Oh, wait. You have this on DVD, Limpin'? So you're a big fan, okay. Seems like most of you are not into this series, which is fine. That's just fine. At this point, I think there's too many movies to really catch up on at this point. Just leave it as is. Just trust me, the movie is not the best. Alright, moving on to number 4. And we are at the Marvels! You guys knew this was going to be on there. I'm sure none of you are surprised that this is on my list. The movie is not great. I genuinely think that this movie looks like it was hacked up in an editing room. I think this movie doesn't really flow. Like, I felt like the story was nonsense because all the scenes just kind of felt like weirdly edited together and people just kind of showed up out of the blue across the universe. Just, they happened to be where they needed to be, and the whole, like, switching places thing didn't really work out because they didn't really fully utilize it. Like, for a good bit of the film, they kind of stopped doing it, and then, like, sometimes they switch and sometimes they don't. They don't really even explain that. I mean, of course, the whole Black Girl Magic line, you guys know how I feel about this stupid woke pandering, especially now that they're throwing Nia DaCosta so far under the bus, and it's just coming across as even more shallow pandering, and it's like, why was this in the movie? Why? But also, I just felt like these 3 women, although I like them individually, I really do. I never bought their, like, friendship dynamic in the movie. To me, they always seem like 3 strangers that were just starting to get to know each other right before the movie ended, but we're supposed to feel like they had this close bond. I don't know. I mean, like, Monica and Carol don't even really get along for the most part for, like, most of the movie. I don't know. I just was not feeling the friendship girly vibes that this was trying to give me. I was just not into this movie. And also the villain. We gotta talk about the villain. Dar-Benn. Gotta be one of the worst Marvel villains. I think she's up there with, like, Malekith. I think she's up there with Malekith at this point. And if you don't know who Malekith is, that is my point. She's everything from her plan to just even her demeanor to, like, everything, the wig, the costumes, the eyes, like, everything just was not working for me. And if I can't take your villain seriously and the whole movie's about fighting the big bad, then how am I going to take your movie seriously? And that's kind of why I was not into the Marvels whatsoever. What do you guys think? I know this jump scare. You guys love this picture. I chose this picture just for you. Jocelyn Wolf says, I didn't see the Marvels. I won't see another girl power movie until Hollywood writes women like actual people and not like token diversity points. Yeah, I would love for that to happen. And here's the thing. Hollywood used to do that. Like, you guys remember this ancient movie called Legally Blonde? I feel like, I know that movie's like, 20 years old now, so I guess it is ancient. Oh my god. But anyway, it's not that old, like, comparatively, for Hollywood to have seemingly forgot the values of one of their own movies, which is that, like, women can be feminine and strong and even, like, pink and romance and traditionally girly things and still be strong. This, like, I don't understand why Hollywood suddenly thinks for women to be strong, they now have to fit into, like, one archetype. Or if they don't want them to be girl boss, in Disney's case, they're, like, going in the adorkable route, too. And I'm like, when did Hollywood decide that they just don't know how to write women anymore? Because, I don't know, man. At least just covering the main blockbusters, because that's mainly what I cover, I find that female roles are largely not well written, like, across the board. And I know that's always been an issue, but I actually think it's getting worse, not better, in my opinion. Arvin says, nothing beats that headless poster. I'm still worried about their heads. I know, the marketing for this movie was so weird. Cheetah Viper says, she's scarier than my dad. You guys are just talking about how scary this photo is. Am I distracting you? Legally Blonde was great, yep. Scorpio Shadow says, so glad that the Hunger Games, the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes saved me from the girl power, right? We have a lot of great women characters in that movie. And I don't feel like a single one of them was an insufferable girl boss or adorkable. They were just, like, well-written women. Why can't we have more of that? That's all I want, you know? That's all I want. Anyway, moving on to my number 3, and we have The Flash. The Flash. Oh, you guys knew this was gonna be on here. This movie, the only thing that saves it for me is that I actually like some of the like more Back to the Future elements to it. Like I like some of the story around the time travel aspect and like trying to save his mom and all that. Like that was good. I liked that part. But what I didn't like was pretty much the rest of the movie. I thought the movie is the number 1 ugliest movie of the year. For me, it is by far the ugliest movie that came out this year. Worse than Aquaman, worse than Quantumania. I really think this movie, the way that they decided, I understand some of the effects were intentional. I get what they were trying to do is they were trying to have like whenever Flash was running and he was going super fast that the whole world would ripple around him just to show how fast he was going, like time was rippling around him just you know, to really emphasize his speed. I get it. But the way that they did it, and then they oversaturated a lot of the colors, and then they framed it so like everything was always kind of in the center, kind of like how you see here, and then they had the final act battle be in this like weird gray flat plane with like this like blank blue sky behind them. It just all looked super artificial. It all looked super weird. None of it looked right. It seemed like the cinematographer had a personal vendetta against every actor because it was like, particularly Ezra Miller. Because I don't know why. It's like they were trying, maybe Ezra Miller did something. I don't know. I mean, knowing Ezra Miller, maybe he did. But like, I feel like they were intentionally choosing the most unflattering angles for Ezra. And I was just like, why are you making your main lead look like this? Like, you can even tell in this suit here on the right. Like, why did they put him in this suit that makes him look so terrible? He looks like he's got 2 necks. I mean, I just don't understand this movie. I don't understand it at all. I thought this was really, really bad. I don't even understand why they, like, filmed it the way they did. It was so strange. Again, this one image just... I mean, they brought back freaking Michael Keaton. They brought back Batman. Multiple Batmans, actually. And still people didn't care. That's how bad this movie was. People were like, I don't care. 3 Batmans in this movie? Not seeing it. I mean, Michael Keaton didn't even want to promote this movie because he knew how bad this film was. So I think this movie was a fail altogether. And it's surprising. That just shows you how bad of a year it was that this was not my number 1. And that there were 2 other movies that I liked even less than this. But this really deserves to be high up on my list, in my opinion. But who has seen The Flash? Who agrees with me? Am I being quiet? You guys can't hear me? Symbala says the only good part of The Flash was when Flash put the baby in the microwave. I saw that clip on Twitter before I saw it in the movie. And I kid you not, the first time I saw that clip of Flash putting the baby in the microwave, like my jaw hung open. I was like, oh my god, what is this movie? Like, this is even worse than I could have expected. Why would they put a baby in a microwave? Okay, hit movies you haven't watched, not planning to watch. Alright. I know, right? The whole marketing campaign for this movie is so funny. Because somehow they got all these big A-list actors to be like, this is the most important movie of our time. Like, they got Tom Cruise, they got Stephen King. Who else did they got? They got like a bunch of like A-list talent to come out and tweet or make public statements saying that this was such a great movie. James Gunn was saying like, oh, this was so great. This is like one of the best DC movies out there. Like, everyone was really pumping this movie up. Only for what we got, it's just like total disconnect between what we saw versus what they were marketing it as. Because this was not this great, outstanding movie. Because like the hype for this was so real. Do you guys remember that apparently the test screenings were so great? Like it was like unusually highly rated for just a test screening. Like it was getting those kind of rumors. Like it was supposed to be just this amazing acclaimed film. And then we got this. So I don't know what happened with this movie. I really don't. Potato Girl says, I feel like I saw a lot of movies, but almost none of these. Oh no! Well, I saw the bad movies, so I had to review them. Wanda says, Brittany, why don't you write, produce, and direct your own movie with strong female leads? Bet you do a good job. Well, I would like to one day. That would be nice. I don't know if Hollywood would let me after I've absolutely roasted them, but that would be fun. Rachel says, there needs to be case studies done about how they marketed the hell out of The Flash. Why trying to bury promo for Aquaman 2 and choose to not shelve either one? Choices were made, terrible choices. Oh, very terrible choices. I can't believe that Batgirl was worse than The Flash and Aquaman. I just don't believe it. That movie could have been that bad, you know? They should have just released it, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's move on to the next movie. So at number 2, you guys probably saw this coming, but Quantumania. Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. Yes, I had to include this movie because, as you guys know, not a fan of this movie at all. I think it's really, really bad. I've already done an entire roast stream, so I'm not going to go into too many details, but just to reiterate some of my biggest talking points on why I hate this movie. The CGI. I know I said the CGI in The Flash was bad, but it really is bad here. In fact, it was so bad that there was multiple articles that came out after this film was released where they were like, oh, the visual effects artists were mistreated, they didn't have enough time to finish things. I've never seen that many articles taking down a visual effects department like there was after after this movie. And even just looking at this image, you can just see it does not look great. These actors do not look composited into their environment. They do not even look like they're actually there. They don't even have shadows. Look at Cassie. She doesn't even have a shadow. So that's why she doesn't even look like she's actually standing there. So, it's not great. The visuals are not great, but I totally don't blame the visual effects artists. 100% blame Disney and them apparently trying to squeeze everything that they could out of these visual effects workers because it showed. Look at this. They really said, we're going to release this to the public and we're going to make $1 billion. Apparently they were blindsided by the fact that people didn't like this movie, which is surprising to me because how could you not see this and think oh yeah, we're definitely going to lose money? They really saw this character, right? They saw this character, they saw Darren Cross as a giant head, and they really thought, you know what? We have a winner. We have a huge, huge winner here. We're going to make so much money. Because that's apparently what they thought. And I guess I just got to say that just shows a huge disconnect because what were they thinking? I have no idea. Yeah, Cassie is really annoying in this movie, Natanya. Motion Going says, truly one of the movies ever made. Yeah, it really is. This movie, man, my expectations were low going into this film, but they were not even met. The low expectations that I had, not gonna lie. Another jump scare. Sorry, guys. I know I have a lot of jump scares in this stream today. It is very nightmarish. Motion Going says MODOK was truly the character ever made. I don't know why these are making me laugh. Yeah, it does look like Shark Boy and Lava Girl, Evil Connor. Really, when you look at this, how is this not Shark Boy and Lava Girl? I wish I had another image for Shark Boy and Lava Girl so you guys could compare and contrast, because it really does look like it. I know Arvin Jonathan Majors couldn't save this movie. Imagine if those allegations came out before this movie came out. He really could have tanked this movie even more. Oh yeah, you were disappointed hit movies. Seems like a lot of people were disappointed. Really not a great film. Again, I've already talked about this movie a lot, so just had to say, not a good movie. Now to my number 1. You guys probably already know what it is because I've mentioned it, but I haven't shown it yet, and I just talked about it. In fact, just posted an entire review of my movie. I just posted my entire review of the movie yesterday, so if you haven't seen the shorter version of my longer live review, just go check out that video. But my number 1, of course, is Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Yeah, I really didn't think anything was going to top Quantumania for me. I thought Quantumania was going to be my least favorite movie by far. You guys know how much I hate that film. And then Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom came in at the last minute and said, hey, I'm here, and I'm really bad. Because holy crap, was this movie really, really bad. This is one of those movies where, again, I was sitting in the theater like, wow, this is really happening. Every now and then I have one of those movie experiences where I'm like in the theater just like in awe at how bad a film was. And this is one of those movies. So, again, just to reiterate, for those who haven't seen my review, some things I really did not care for. Wet Jabba. Wet Jabba should not have been a thing. The whole, like, underwater cantina scene with the singing fish in the Wet Jabba. Oh, man. This entire scene was, like, one of the worst. I think this is the worst scene of any movie I've seen this year. Of any movie I've seen by far this year, this scene had me cringing out of my skin. I couldn't believe it made it to the final cut. Was not into this scene at all. Did not care for it. Also, did not like that it was a lot of muddy CGI. I thought the CGI in the first movie actually looked better. Was just not care for the visuals in this one either. Also, Momoa was Dante. I like Dante in Fast and Furious, but in this one it was just like, oh, you're just being Momoa. Very Momoa. What happened to Aquaman? I don't know. The tone of it was weird. It's very inconsistent. I thought it just had a weird, uncanny look for most of the movie. Was not a fan of this movie. Of course, did not care for the giant grasshopper sequence either. A lot of things did not care for this movie. But what did you guys think? Who has seen Aquaman? Do you think it deserves to be number 1 on my list? Why or why not? Wet Java. Oh, I know. Wet Java really was the worst part. Why do you want me to stop calling him Wet Java? Jal Pedro says CGI was at its peak in 2023. I really feel like CGI was at its lowest. Like, look at this. I mean, I know this is like a messed up kind of blurry scene, but like, really, here's just a still from Aquaman, right? These are the singers singing, and then this is a still from Star Wars. I mean, both are not 100% realistic, but why does the Star Wars one look better, you know? I don't know what's happening with the CGI. I mean, I do know what's happening with the CGI. I think these poor visual effects workers are just terribly overworked, and it's showing. Because really, this movie, I was just Homelander. This is how I felt, essentially, the entire film. But what did you guys think about Aquaman? Wet Dune, Wet Java, yes. Yeah, I know, Disney is very cheap. Jocelyn says, the final act was underwhelming. Why did that bad ghost guy get 2 lines and get killed in one hit? I actually thought a 3-way team-up with Orm, Aquaman, and Manta versus the evil undead guy would be cool. I think for pretty much anything that they could have done else would have been more interesting. I just think that, I don't know, I was not into this film. This, like The Marvels, was another movie I felt like I could just tell it was hacked up in the editing room. It just felt like the scenes did not flow together well at all to me. Like, literally, poor Nicole Kidman just shows up out of nowhere. It was very strange. No, this is not Disney. This is DC. So, every studio really has a lot of problems. Why are you guys saying Wet Java sounds like a porno? This is not what we're talking about. But anyway, that's my top 10 least favorite. I'm about to get to the member question where I asked you guys what were some of the films you guys didn't like this year. But any other thoughts on my top 10 list? Or maybe your top 10 list before we get to the member question? Who is calling this Disney motion going? Ruru says, I may skip this one too. I didn't finish the first Aquaman. I like DC animated films. Everyone says DC's animated stuff is better, but I haven't tried it. Maybe I should. I mean, Eva Connor, she did. She really did. Professor Strangefinger says they need competition if cinema is going to survive. What I'm seeing is maybe the opposite. I think 2024, just looking ahead, we are going to do a stream looking ahead to movies next year. So look forward to that stream. Actually, next week. Next week, we are going to do a stream on that. So look forward to that. We're going to go over all the movies coming out next year. And I'm going to tell you, Apart from a few movies that I think look promising, I think mostly next year looks like it could be a repeat of this year where there's a lot of big bombs, a lot of surprise flops, and again, maybe even another strike with IATSE. So I think 2024 could also be a bad year for movies, but we'll see. Alright, let's get to the member question. No, Wish was not on my list. I know Wish should have been on my list. But I guess if there was a whole other stream I would have made for just the mid category, that would have been on the mid list. I probably could have made a whole other top 10 list just for like the most mid of mid movies. And then Wish probably would have been on that list. I've seen a lot of movies this year. But yeah, Wish didn't make it. Anyway, getting to the member question. So I asked you guys, or asked my members, what movies did you not like this year? What were some of your least favorite films that you saw? And of course, I got some great comments. Alexander Padilla said, "Hey Brittany." Sorry. Thank you. Alexander says, "Hey Brittany, and there were quite a few movies that I seriously hated this year, and my list includes Napoleon." Still haven't seen that, and I was really excited for Napoleon too, but then when all the bad reviews came out, and I had to see a lot of other movies at that time, it never got around to like being on my list, so I probably will see Napoleon eventually, I just haven't seen it yet. Shazam 2, Magic Mike: The Last Dance, Journey to Bethlehem, and Indiana Jones. I've never heard of Journey to Bethlehem. As always, keep up the great work. Thank you so much for this list. Indiana Jones and Shazam, just heads up, I have not seen them. That's why they're not on my list. Now, Indiana Jones, I actually did try to watch Indiana Jones. I started Indiana Jones. I think I actually started Indiana Jones like twice. And I could not finish it because I was so bored. So I didn't include it on my list because I didn't think it was fair. I didn't actually watch the whole thing. But I did watch part of Indiana Jones and I just fell asleep. I just think that movie's so boring. But I didn't include it because I didn't technically watch the whole thing. Now Shazam, I did not watch. I haven't seen Shazam at all. Just because, really, the main lead, Zachary Levi, he kind of put a bad taste in my mouth with how hard he was marketing for that movie. So I just kind of never got around to seeing that one. So that's why those two movies didn't make my list. Simbala says, "I wonder how 2024 will be for movies I'm excited for. Inside Out 2, Kung Fu Panda 4, and Coyote vs. Acme." Well, will Coyote vs. Acme even come out at this point? It sounds like Max is playing hardball, but we'll see. Okay, Alan did not like the new Indiana Jones movie. Yeah, I couldn't finish it. I just really couldn't. Edgemon says, "I avoid so many bad movies that released in theaters because I knew that I wouldn't like them. But the only actually bad movie that I had to see, though, it was Ant-Man 3. Yeah, it was very bad. There were 5 people in my screening, and everyone was looking at their phone after 30 minutes into the movie, including me, because we were so bored, and some people left during break. We have 10-minute breaks in the middle of the movies here. It's so annoying." Wait, you get intermissions? Where do you live, Edgemon? I only saw the movie just because I like Paul Rudd. I like Ant-Man, and I had free popcorn menu that, and you had a free popcorn menu that had a closed deadline, that had a closed deadline, but even that wasn't enough to satisfy me. I want my money back. Oh my gosh, you got free popcorn, and you still want your money back? Yeah. I mean, I've seen Quantumania. I understand. I totally understand where you're coming from. Okay, Shazam was a disappointment. Yeah, I heard a lot of bad things about Shazam. Getting back to this, Rachel Reed's Romance says, "I didn't watch most of the 2023 bad movies to pick from, and barely watched 2023 releases in general. Of the few I watched, Knock at the Cabin was the worst for me this year. I haven't seen a lot of horror movies this year. I don't typically watch a lot of horror movies, but I'm sorry you didn't enjoy that one. The only ones I really saw this year were I saw FNAF, I saw Megan, I saw The Exorcist, but as you guys just saw, I didn't like it. Didn't see a ton, to be honest. Maybe I should see more." Chevron Jr., thank you so much for the super chat. Oh, not super chat. Thank you so much for being a member. My least favorite movie this year would have to be Wish. While the film is mid and a lot of people are still junking on this movie till this day, there are many people that are trying to rewrite the movie since whatever we've gotten was so misshapen. While I don't agree that Asha should have been the king and queen's daughter, here's how things would have worked in my opinion. Before the movie starts, Asha could have been an apprentice for the king like way back when. I don't know how you'd fix that, but oh well. Even before the film starts, we'd see her every single day going to the kingdom and preparing for the big day. Now, on to the King Magnifico and his song, This Is the Thanks I Get. While the song is poorly written, I do see some things that could have worked. For example, he's not happy with everything that's going on in the kingdom because all people in Rosas want their wishes to be granted. They don't care about the king, which is what caused him to act the way he does, and that's what caused him to become evil in the first place. Yeah, I agree. As I said in my review, I think one of Wish's biggest issues was that I feel like the villain just wasn't given a strong enough motivation. Like, you don't have to give him a tragic backstory. Like, I'm not asking for him to become like a tragic, sympathetic character. That's not what I mean when I say he needs a motivation. I just mean like you needed a real reason for why he wanted power other than just wanting power, because I think that would have made him more compelling. Like, I gave examples to say, what's his name? Jafar from Aladdin. He was kind of in the situation that you were painting, that he was an apprentice to the Sultan, and he wanted power because he was tired of being second fiddle to the Sultan. That was his whole arc. That was his motivation. He was still plainly evil. He wasn't sympathetic. He didn't have some tragic backstory, but he still had at least a motivation. That's just something that King Magnifico didn't have, and that's why I think the movie really suffered. Tintimex says, funny, but I think the most iconic Hollywood creation of 2023 was Rachel Zegler's Weird. That will definitely go down in history. Iconic. Oh my god. Rachel Zegler, how did she step in it? Like, this is really her first big year in the big spotlight. Like, I know she was in West Side Story, but not a lot of people actually saw West Side Story. So this was the first year where she's really been in a lot of big stuff and been in the actual spotlight. And wow, did she immediately get a bunch of haters. She really is like the new Brie Larson. She really is at this point. Like, unfortunately for her, unless she has a huge transformative metamorphosis, kind of like what Brie Larson went through, I don't know how she's gonna get herself out of this. We'll see. Getting back to my comments, though, Nicholas Wilson says, I'm tempted to say Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. You actually saw that? I was tempted to watch this, but I was like, I have a feeling it's just going to be bad and not even, like, bad in a fun way, so it sounds like it's just bad. But I expected it to be bad. Right. It was never going to be good, and frankly, the same goes for The Nun 2. I saw the first Nun movie, and I hated that movie so much. I was never seeing the sequel. The Meg 2 and others. I kind of liked The Meg 2. It was alright. So it comes down to how we each personally qualify bad. And for me, it was probably Elemental. That may not seem that bad on the face of it, but it exemplifies how a studio that became beloved for making magical movies now just makes uninspired and uninspiring by the numbers product. Elemental is a predictable, soulless, industrialized product. You know what? You were preaching to the choir. I'm so glad Nicholas and other people in my chat who I have seen agree with me on this movie. I know a lot of people, and it wound up doing really well in theaters because people actually like Elemental for the most part. People kept going back to theaters to see it and telling people to go see it. So, like, most people actually like this movie. I get it. But Nicholas, you're preaching to the choir. I fully agree with you. I don't think Elemental is that great. Again, if I made an entire stream for just top 10 mid-movies, Elemental would probably be the number one mid-movie. Just because I think it's, as you put it, uninspired and a by-the-numbers product. That's kind of how I feel Wish is. So maybe I should have made my top 10 list. Honestly, maybe I'm being too kind to this movie. But anyway, I agree with a lot of what you said here, Nicholas, for sure. Aster Flowers, thank you so much for being a member. Out of what I saw this year, I think my least favorite movie was Wish. Okay. All the movie left me feeling was disappointment because I wanted so much more out of it. Ruby Gilman was also extremely mediocre, but looking back, I don't know what I was really expecting. You were expecting something great. I feel like we also have trained ourselves to expect mediocrity now, just because we get so much like mediocre stuff on streaming, so much mediocre stuff in theaters. So now I feel like even critics are being like really nice to movies that are really bad. And like as a critic myself, I guess, who critiques movies now, like I find myself like I don't want to just be like, oh, these movies are terrible. But at the same time, all these movies are terrible. No. A lot of these movies are really like kind of just okay. I mean, I just think Hollywood has a really, really big creative problem, especially with their big blockbusters. Maybe if I really want to watch like the super indie stuff, maybe that stuff is better. Although I have seen some of the super indie stuff. Like every year I tend to watch a lot of the stuff that gets nominated for Oscars just to say like, you know, well versed in everything that, you know, is happening in the entertainment industry. And I have to say even the Hollywood like Oscar bait movies for the most part are not really hitting with me either. So I don't know. I just feel like I don't know. I just think a lot of these movies are not that great. I hope it's not just me. I don't think it is, because people have been talking about this. Even, I think it was, who was it? Quentin Tarantino? Quentin Tarantino said recently in an interview that we're currently living through the worst era ever for movies. That's what he said. So I think Quentin Tarantino actually would probably agree with me on this. Evil Connor says, I'm signing all your 23 yearbooks with weird, and sit down. I mean, I feel like those are our two biggest things, that and Holes, which, by the way, we are talking about Holes on Friday. So look forward to me talking about Holes on Friday, because I did promise, so we're doing that. Anyway, getting back to this. What was that? Where was I at? Natani says, my least favorite movie of the year is Wish. Yeah, a lot of people were very disappointed. I'm so sorry, guys. Me Multilayer says, thanks to you, Brittany, I avoided watching some big blockbusters that tanked. But I gave Quantumania a chance because I wanted to be updated with the MCU. But this movie was horrendous. Yeah. Not only visually, but the story was crap. So I think it was one worst movie of the year. Well, it was my second least favorite movie of the year, so I totally agree with you. And I bet you if you saw Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, that would be your number one too. Because it was not good. RuPaul's Drag Race Superfan says, 3 of my least favorite is The Little Mermaid. Absolutely hated it. It sucked the life out of the original and it looked so colorless. I just purely hate it. Yeah, I mean, I get it. I think The Little Mermaid had a similar issue that Peter Pan and Wendy had. And that I think people were kind of looking like for what Barbie delivered. They were looking for a nice, maybe colorful dreamscape that people can kind of escape to. Like, imagine if The Little Mermaid had made the underwater sequences look as cool and lived in and immersive as the Barbie world. Or if they had made Neverland look that cool in Peter Pan and Wendy. I think that's honestly what people were looking for, and both movies just did not deliver that. What are you talking about, Andrea? Evil Connor says, OMG, I love Little Mermaid, even though it looked like a Disney Channel film. Not you calling it a Disney Channel film. I think most people can agree one of the worst parts of that movie is the visuals, but that's like almost every movie. How many movies have we talked about where we're like, yeah, the visuals are not great? I don't know what's going on, man. They need to fix their visuals. Really, Hollywood, like I said, Hollywood just has a creativity problem in general. Oppenheimer. Oh no, Ant-Man is a fine movie, but the CGI is bad and the big bad is so bad. And now it is a pointless film since Kang is no longer the big bad and no one wants to look at something with the criminal that is Jonathan Majors. I mean, I agree with you. Quantumania, obviously on my list too. I've been literally hating on that film the entire year. So I agree. Ant-Man and the Wasp, not great. CGI is also bad. I have no idea what they're going to do with Kang now that Jonathan Majors has been fired. I think they should just move on from Kang as a character entirely. I think we should just focus on a new villain and just try to speed run towards rebooting as fast as possible, because I think that's what they need to do. But unfortunately, and we're going to talk about this next week, we're going to have a whole stream just rounding up a lot of Marvel rumors, because there are a lot. There are rumors that Marvel wants to, like, they want to incorporate the X-Men faster. So they want the X-Men, like, in a bunch of movies before we even get to Secret Wars, which I don't know how I feel about that, because then that means we're going to have the X-Men roaming around in the Avengers universe. And you guys know how I feel about the current universe. So I don't know how I feel about that. Plus, it just sounds like they're trying to rush and introduce the X-Men before they can really properly develop them, so that worries me. I don't know. The X-Men is literally the MCU's last Hail Mary, because they don't own Spider-Man. So they need the X-Men to work out. And I'm already nervous just from the stuff that I'm hearing. So oh man, I'd be so disappointed if they don't get the X-Men right. You guys know I'm actually really looking forward to the X-Men. So I'm nervous. Anyway. Number 3, you said Oppenheimer. I get this movie is not for everyone, but it is too damn long and it's so boring. To me, it is not a good film, but if you like it, it is fine. Yeah, Oppenheimer probably would have gone on my mid list. I know a lot of people love Oppenheimer. A lot of people swear by it. I got a comment in my top 10 videos list that said, I don't trust anyone's opinions on movies if Oppenheimer's not in your top 10. And I was like, really, dude? Is it that serious? You don't trust anything I say on movies because I didn't care for Oppenheimer? All right. Well, I saw Oppenheimer twice. I told you guys that I felt upset with myself that I never saw it in 70mm and IMAX, just because I live so close to one and I could do that. I saw it at the Lincoln Theater here in New York, so I saw it on that giant IMAX screen. And I was like, all right, maybe if I go see it here in the Lincoln Square Theater on this giant IMAX and 70mm, that, you know, maybe I'll like the movie more. And I do appreciate it for its filmmaking qualities. Like, aesthetically, it's beautiful, which in a year where we got a lot of really ugly movies, I appreciate that at least visually the movie was gorgeous. I appreciate the craftsmanship behind the sets and the direction. Like, I get, like, from a filmmaking perspective, I understand why people like this movie. The reason I didn't like this movie was because I thought Oppenheimer was an unlikable guy. I thought the way he treated women was terrible, particularly his wife, and it frustrated me and pissed me off the entire time. And then in the very end, he tries to avoid all credit for, you know, having created a bomb that killed thousands and thousands of people. So, you know, I couldn't feel myself getting attached to a guy like that. So that's why I didn't care for Oppenheimer. But those are just my thoughts. And then also dishonorable mention to every Disney film except for Guardians 3. Everything else was so bad. Also, the worst company of the year is Disney. Yeah, I have to agree. I think the only great movie that Disney released this year was Guardians 3. And the guy who made that is about to go work at the competition. That's how bad their year was. Disney had a terrible, terrible year, man. Really the worst. I mean, the entire industry had a bad year, but I think Disney by far had to have had the worst. And it was their 100th year anniversary. That's so sad. So sad. Primal Plasma says, Oppenheimer is an acquired taste. It's a vibe. It has the same appeal as 2001 A Space Odyssey. No, I like 2001 A Space Odyssey. I feel like 2001 is a lot more interesting and engaging and intriguing than Oppenheimer was. I like 2001. Scorpio Shadow says, both Oppenheimer and Barbie are going to be the best movies of the year 2023. I think they're going to be the most remembered, for sure. Yeah, Emmerich says the film bros were so annoying when it came to Oppenheimer. True. There still are. It probably is going to win a lot of Oscars, though. I mean, it has a good chance. But anyway, that is my stream. That is my top 10 least favorite movies of the year list. So I'm glad everyone could come and join me. Again, on Friday, we will talk about Holes. I will review it, give my thoughts. Maybe I might also give a few updates on some news, because there's a lot of news actually that I haven't gotten over since last week, so I might make it a multi-stream thing. I'm not sure yet, but be sure you're here on Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our whole show. Actually, you know what? I was contemplating this. I was not sure of what I was going to do. You know what? Sorry. I think I'm getting sick again. It's so cold here. I don't know. I need what's going on? Anyway. I think tomorrow I'm going to do another stream. I'm going to do a stream. I know I said I'm not doing streams on Tuesday and Thursday, but we really haven't had a good news stream in a while, and there's a lot of news to go over. So I think tomorrow I'm going to do a stream at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time like I normally would. And that's going to be a typical news stream. And then Friday, it's just going to be a Holy Holes show. So just holes, just reviewing holes. But on tomorrow, I think I am going to do a show at 4, the usual time, where we do news. So, does that sound good to you guys? Are you guys happy with that? Yes? Okay, yes. 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the stream tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the stream on Friday. So same times as usual. Alright, so it sounds like this sounds good for you guys. Alright then, well I will see you tomorrow then at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for a new news stream. That sounds great. Alright guys, I'll see you then. Bye.